To the second ever episode of Wrestling FanCast. My name is Idan, and this is Michael, and we're going to be talking about the events of Wrestlemania, the Superstar Shakeup, and this week's Raw. We're going to start with Wrestlemania because the last episode we covered the lead up into that. So the pre-card showed the Andre the Giant Battle Memorial. What did you think?
It was a fine match. I'm kind of disappointed that they didn't really do anything with Big Show or with Braun Strowman, to be honest. At the end, the win was like, hey, look, we know famous people, which WWE loves to do.
Especially around Wrestlemania.
Yeah. Rob Gronkowski came, and he's apparently one of Mojo's friends.
Yeah.
And he helped him win, and that was that. I mean, I'm happy for Mojo. I think I won't say deserves, because I hate the you deserve it chant, but I think he earned a push, and I hope he gets one.
Yeah. I mean, there's not much really you can say. It was very much an Andre the Giant of mid-card talent. There wasn't anyone that was particularly bad, but there also wasn't really anyone that was particularly good, and I think that the fact that the last two were... I mean, aside from, and I'll say this, Braun Strowman, who we'll talk about more when it gets to Raw, but the fact that the final two were Mojo Rawley and Jinder Mahal, I remember watching it and being like, what the hell is going on? And being like...
It was very odd.
Yeah, especially when it's like... And Killian Dane, known as Big Damo in the Independents, was in it, and it was like even weirder. Like he was also in like the last four, I think. It was really bizarre.
Yeah, he was. And I think it was a good run for him.
Yeah.
And I hope to see him in the main roster.
I don't think that's going to happen because I think his run with Sanity at the moment in NXT is just they're too good to move up at the moment because they are. I mean, they're one of the best storylines going on. Then we go to the Cruiserweights. Neville retaining against Austin Aries. I mean, they're both... Yeah, they're both very good.
Yeah, it was expected. We'll see a good show.
Yeah.
Neville won, which surprised some people because Austin has a lot of momentum behind him. But to think about it, also Neville. Like, Neville has been very good since the heel turn.
Yeah. I think the thing about that is, and look, I predicted Neville to retain because I think that, I mean, it's the start of their feud. Like, it wouldn't make much sense to hot potato the belt at the moment because you want to establish Neville as the dominant heel and Aries as the babyface.
Yeah.
We'll move on to the third match of the pre-show, Dean Ambrose versus Baron Corbin.
My man Dean won. He kept the title from that mean old Baron Corbin
but it just,
person.
And this is I think going to start a bit of a trend in at least this WrestleMania, was that some of the booking decisions were really, really bizarre. Like, Dean Ambrose has done nothing with the belt, unfortunately. He has the possibility to do. They just haven't written anything for him. Corbin would benefit by being given the belt, and then you could push Ambrose back up to the main event scene, which is where he belongs. And I feel like Ambrose retaining the belt is actually bad in the long term, because it doesn't do anything for Corbin losing the belt, because he's now being pushed back, and again we'll go into this on SmackDown review later, but he's been pushed back, and Dean Ambrose is now on Raw, and like, what's he going to do with the belt there? I don't know if he's even got like really an opponent yet. They set up a number one contender.
Yeah, they're set up a program with Miz.
Right. Because those two haven't feuded over the belt like
but
in the
they're
recent.
together. So I mean, it's not as outdone as other feuds.
Yeah. Then we go on to the main show, and almost the biggest surprise of the night was the first match, AJ Styles versus Shane McMahon.
Yes.
I remember watching that match and just the whole way through going, this is ridiculous. This is actually an entertaining match. And, I mean, AJ is a solid performer, and whichever match he was going to be in was always going to be a good one. But they were actually the third longest match on the card.
Yeah. Shane McMahon, the 40-something-year-old businessman, just wrestled better than some of WWE's current roster wrestlers. He gave it his all. And I'm not saying like the roster isn't talented. I say some of them don't really care. But Shane did care. Shane put up a great match. I'm not saying anything about AJ because AJ is obvious. He's arguably the best wrestler around. So saying AJ had a good match is kind of a given. But Shane very, very much surprised me. He didn't do a lot of his stupid phantom punches thingy. And, of course, one of the spots of the night, which I absolutely loved, is the unbotched
Shooting Star Press.
Press.
Well, I was looking back. He's actually done it before. That's not his first Shooting Star Press.
Yeah, I actually did a research afterwards, and I saw that it wasn't his first time, but still, it was very surprising.
Yeah.
Especially
he nailed it. He nailed it.
Today's WWE.
Yeah, he absolutely nailed it.
Yeah, it was a great spot.
Then, I think if you're going to describe, and this is sort of, because I think I'd mainly describe the next match of Kevin Owens and Chris Jericho as disappointing, only because leading into it, you would have identified this as one of the matches of the night, and there were some good moments, but I don't think it was as good a match as it could have been, or as people were expecting it to be, given who was in it. I mean, there were some nice spots. Obviously, Owens picking up the win with Jericho rumored to be finishing up his current contract. He'll go on tour, and I guess he'll come back, hopefully, because he's just phenomenal. But, I mean, the finger spot was the one highlight. Most of the people that I've spoken to.
It was such a Kevin Owens move. It was fantastic.
Yeah. But nothing particularly special about it. Yeah.
Yeah. The one thing that I found, the two things actually that I found were missing. First, there wasn't a lot of storyline during the match. I mean, for example, in Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn's big blow-off match to finish their feud that they had, there was this great spot with Sami giving the haluva kick and then looking at Kevin for a sec, just kind of looking at him like he's disappointed that that's what happened to his friend, then propping him up and giving him another haluva kick. That's a lot of that injected a lot of emotion. Now in Kevin Owens and Chris Jericho's match, it was a good match, but there wasn't any emotion inside that match. That, and also the finish to the match was weird. I mean, Kevin Owens does win a lot with a powerbomb to the apron. That's not new, but he didn't do any theatrics. It didn't look like a finishing move. It looked like he's going to do the move and then do another thing. But he did the powerbomb, just pushed him into the ring and 1, 2, 3, which was kind of weird.
Yeah, moves on the outside don't usually win matches, I think, is another way to just sort of explain that. Usually if you're rolling someone in, it's giving them time to recover and they've got the kick out.
Yeah.
Then the Fatal 4-Way elimination match, which actually count, like, Fatal 4-Way is supposed to be like the 1-4, whereas it was an elimination match. I think I don't understand why they kept Bayley and Charlotte to the end, especially with Charlotte moving over to SmackDown. Doesn't really make sense. Nia Jax was kept strong even though she was eliminated first, which was really good because essentially it took the other three to team up to defeat her, taken straight out of the classic, beat up the big person, and then work on each other. That the WWE had used really well in the NXT tag team match in the lead up. Do you have anything to add?
No, I liked the Nia Jax spot very much. I think going into the match, I didn't really want to see her in the match because I think she's great, but she's still too green to there, so that was fun to see. Bayley retaining, I mean, that's a fine choice. I don't feel much for Bayley as champion as I feel for Charlotte when she's champion or Sasha when she's champion. But maybe she just needs to grow on me.
Yeah. I've been hearing a lot of that recently, though. Bayley's not quite as maybe over as when she first debuted, or at least as a champion, she's not quite as over as she possibly could be. And then this is probably one of the best moments of the night, was the triple threat ladder match that got turned into a fatal 4-way ladder match. And just one of... I think one of the best moments of the night for most people in seeing the Hardys return to the WWE. I mean, as someone that's as someone that's watched wrestling from the Attitude Era days, it was such a pleasant surprise, and the sort of expectation, but also not knowing whether it was going to happen. Was also really, really nice. And then the winning was just ridiculous. I mean, as soon as they arrived and it was like a ladder match, you're like, okay, they're going to win because it's their match.
Yeah.
But, yeah, it was still a nice touch.
Yeah. I was going to say that I genuinely think that this is going to go down in history as one of the greatest moments in WrestleMania.
Yeah.
Just because it's such a high profile return. I mean, I think that people 5 years from now wouldn't understand why it's so big, but the Hardy Boys right now, the Broken Man especially, is so hot right now in the scene that WWE requiring him is great. It's amazing.
Yeah. And then it was interesting though, because that match was phenomenal, possibly and my contender for match of the night. But the issue was that it was followed by then 3 matches where the crowd was silent, and the first of that was and this is, I think, a criticism that I'll have of WrestleMania. It was the John Cena, Nikki Bella versus Miz and Maurice match. A match that, leading into it, would have made more sense with Dean Ambrose and Renee Young. And my thing is, and this is my criticism now, WrestleMania is now built towards specific moments. There was no storyline in that match leading up to it. They did it for the specific prospect of Cena proposing to Nikki after the match. That was it.
Yeah.
And that was really weird.
The thing about this match is they could just as well have given Miz and Maurice the win anyway, because I think it's even more emotional if John Cena comes as the loser and still says something to Nikki about, I don't know, I don't care we lost, blah, 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 I love you, all that sappy stuff, and then proposing to her. I don't think they needed that win, especially when both of them are kind of out for now. I think Miz got a little bit shafted, which makes sense considering all the things he's been saying all the time. I didn't understand this match. I didn't understand the finish, and I didn't really care. I did care before. I did care about the build-up because Miz is awesome, but the match itself was meh. Yeah,
I think it was hindered more by the fact that at the same time the match before that was the ladder match.
Yeah.
Then we move on to the unsanctioned match between Seth Rollins and Triple H. Surprisingly, like, for an unsanctioned match, for a match that could have been like a no DQ match, it was relatively free of any sort of spots. Stephanie McMahon going through the table was a particular highlight for the crowd. And Seth Rollins coming up, winning is what needed to happen. and Triple H has been very good of recent times, putting over the next generation of talent. In the sense that,
as he should.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That is now his job. But yeah, no, a reasonably good match. The longest match on the card. It was longer than the Battle Royal, which is pretty impressive.
Well, it was.
Yeah. And I mean, this is all we need to say about that. Then, possibly for my mind, the worst match of the night, which was the WWE.
Most boring, yes.
Huh?
And the most boring, yes.
You're talking about Orton versus Wyatt.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not much to say about this one. Bray Wyatt has the power to pay off the production crew or something. That's his new superpower, because he kept projecting dumbass videos of maggots and cockroaches and stuff, which was very scary to Randy Orton. Of course, Randy Orton won, even though he shouldn't, because it's Randy Orton, and he's kind of a Cena when it comes to big matches, unless it's against Brock Lesnar. It was a very boring match with no interference from the Wyatt family or Luke Harper, which should have been at least an interference, if not an official part of the match. And that's it. Bray loses once again.
Yeah. I mean, Bray Wyatt is the king of losing at pay-per-views.
Yeah.
My most disappointing thing that I'll say about that is, as much as they gave him a shit power, that was a terrible, terrible power, for him to use that power and then still lose, really, really bad. Really, really bad. You're trying to build him up as this phenomenal force, and by all accounts, you want him to replace The Undertaker and that sort of thing. And just, I mean, it doesn't make sense. If you want to have that aura, protect that aura. Don't screw him with it. Don't give it to him and then just screw him. That makes no sense.
I agree.
Then we move on to Lesnar beating Goldberg.
Yeah, that was a great match, I think. They did a good job.
Yeah, there's nothing more I can really add to that. Then the six-pack women's challenge match with no additions, no last-minute entries to the SmackDown Women's Championship match.
Yeah, because for some reason they revealed Naomi's coming back on a SmackDown show and not in the actual WrestleMania, which was a very dumb move because, I mean, come on, like try to give the crowd a pop for Naomi, which she would have received. I mean, I'm pretty sure that's her hometown.
Yes, it is her hometown.
Yeah,
if not her home state. She's definitely from Florida. I don't know if she's from Orlando or somewhere near there, but...
Well, she's built from Orlando anyway, so yeah, it is. I think that holding up that information and just keeping it a secret and then having her come out last and winning would be a great pop. A cheap pop, I admit, but it would be a great pop to an otherwise very unspecial, uninteresting match, which of course comes before the main event, so it's always in like a bad spot.
Yeah.
But WWE has had this thing recently of doing stuff before pay-per-views and not waiting to the actual pay-per-views, which is a very odd decision.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. It was almost like a bit of a screw you to the fans for them being pissed off about the fact that it was originally booked to be on the pre-show. And they're like, no, this is not going on the pre-show. It's like, oh, fine, you don't want it on the pre-show? We'll put it just before the main event when most people are going to take the pee break.
Yeah.
So, it was that. And then finally, The Undertaker versus Roman Reigns.
Don't make me relive that, please.
Yeah, I'll try not to. It's a shame, because you can see some of the spots that I think that they would have liked to have done would have looked really cool. Roman Reigns reversing the tombstone into a tombstone, but The Undertaker just couldn't get up, and
Roman Reigns couldn't pick him up.
I mean, it's difficult.
Yeah, I understand, but it was kind of a shared botch. You can't point your finger at one of the...
No, I know. I'm not. I would not fault The Undertaker, but there's a reason why he couldn't get up to that level, and that's obviously because of his health. And it's a shame, because it otherwise would have been a very good spot in an okay match. It wasn't a great match, but it also wasn't a terrible match. It definitely isn't a contender for worst match of the night, but it isn't a contender for best match of the night.
To be honest, I think it was a terrible match. Let's start, because I have a lot of points on this one. First of all, the whole Roman Reigns thing, which, I mean, I know I don't need to say it, but still I will. Roman Reigns should not be pushed as the top babyface guy, and I think it's obvious to everybody but Vince. He is not charismatic. He's boring to most people. He's a good wrestler, but he's nothing special. He's not even close to the top level guys in terms of in-ring performance. He's not very good on the mic, and he's just a heat magnet, and not a good kind of hit, a bad go-away kind of hit that you don't want a wrestler to have. They had an opportunity to book him to win and turn heel, or even lose and then beat up Undertaker and turn heel, but of course they didn't, because Vince McMahon, he does his own shtick, and even if it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, so talking about now Raw, so we've moved on from the first program. Yeah, I think there's not really much to be said about that. I think it would have been better if they kept them together, but with Owens moving over to SmackDown and them two separating, it's going forward. It's obviously going to be Joe versus Rollins, which I think will be a perfectly good program. And I think 3 years ago, indie fans would have been salivating over that match to be happening in the WWE. It's happening in the WWE, but it's not exactly how they want it to go. Yeah. Next, we'll go into the tag team divisions. The Hardys have just been the first of an incredibly strong Raw tag team division. In the sense that they've now got Enzo and Cass, Anderson, the Hardys, Sheamus and Cesaro, who have, I mean, now that they've pushed back into sort of a single, like, it's just them as a tag team against other tag teams, like as a one-fall. Suits them a lot better than mixing them in with all these different other teams. Further than that, you've got the Revival, who are unfortunately going to be injured. A New Day now moving to SmackDown, but it makes for an incredibly strong tag team division when you have Anderson, Sheamus and Cesaro, Enzo and Cass even are a bit now. I mean, here's the thing: Enzo and Cass are now the sort of the shining stars of the Raw tag team division, in the sense that, I say it not in the sense that they've got a terrible gimmick, but they're going to be eating a lot of pinfalls because they're in such a strong division. There's nothing you can help about that. I mean, it is just the matter of fact. And look, who knows, because Slater and Rhino have also come across to Raw, so they'll probably be a part of that, and they may take some of the heat off Enzo and Cass, who desperately need to win something sometime soon. Probably should have gone over to SmackDown. Would have been a bit better there. But yeah,
maybe turn heel with Carmella.
Yeah, that also could have been a good thing to do. It would have been a new angle, and look, I think it's a bit hard now because we've now got the New Day has been Kofi Kingston's been put on the shelf with a legitimate injury, from what I know, and their storyline with the Revival was really working though, and now they've been moved.
The Revival is also injured. I think it was Dawson who's injured.
Yeah, Dawson's injured.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So I mean, I'm very happy that Revival is on the main roster. I think they very much earned it in NXT. I hope Dawson gets well soon because I want to see them do no flips and do a lot of fists.
Yeah, they're a particularly good tag team. I mean, we've spoken about this before in the sense that the NXT tag team division is just phenomenally talented. Hashtag DIY and Revival bought up a tag team division that was just amazing, and it's gone from strength to strength, and hopefully them leaving doesn't kill that division too much, but it is...
I don't think so. I think DIY still has that tag team, and I mean, I don't personally like the Offers of Pain, but I think they have their merits.
Yeah. The thing is, if they're the only two tag teams, and look, NXT is now going to have to introduce a new bunch of tag teams. Sanity could come into the tag team scene, which I think would be phenomenal, would be really good, especially to counter Authors of Pain, because Sanity is super hot right now, and Sanity sort of brings in that sense that they should be more staples on WWE programming, because
I agree.
It was a great mark. It brings up mid-card talent to be hanging out with main eventers. And when they're shown together, it makes you realize how good that these guys can be. And obviously the Hardys coming back is just phenomenally good. I mean... and then Kurt Angle coming back. Kurt Hawkins being used...
Surprisingly.
Yeah. Kurt Hawkins being used as a jobber. Finn Balor's return to the ring. Slowly. They're really probably trying to wrap him in cotton wool, but it looks like he's going to be moving in to a program with Bray Wyatt, which will be interesting. And then I think the last thing to really talk about from Raw is the best story to come out of the last few weeks, and that's just Braun Strowman is incredible.
He is. It's amazing how you can take a guy who basically was a muscle for not even that successful of a stable and just push him to great heights. I mean, you could say something about the fact that they are trying to push him as a heel and he's coming out as a face, but the WWE fan base is very smarky. I think he's a great heel. I think he has the right look. He knows how to wrestle. He's not just a big guy who picks stuff up. He knows moves. He knows how to move in the ring. He knows how to have his presence, like a very intimidating kind of presence. He's not talking a lot, but when he talks, is very...
It's meaningful.
But
it's meaningful.
Yeah, it's meaningful. Yeah, and I'm really very much with that whole push. I like it. It's great.
Yeah, I genuinely think he could have programs coming up with some other wrestlers to really push him into that main card. And I'm super happy that he's in that. that he's in that position now because he absolutely deserves to be. Everything about...
I was just going to say that the only problem is his next pay-per-view match is going to be jobbed to Roman Reigns, but after that...
You assume that, but he lost at Fastlane. I wouldn't be surprised if he wins.
I would be.
Yeah, we'll see. So then we move on from Raw to SmackDown. SmackDown seemed to lose their main women's division stars and then gain possibly the biggest star in female wrestling today.
Yeah.
In Tamina Snuka.
In Tamina Snuka, of course.
But also gaining Sami Zayn obviously needed a fresh change. I think bringing in the Shining Stars and changing it, it looks like they're now going to be booked as the Colognes, which I really hope leads to a reunion with Carlito.
Yeah, there's been a lot of talking about Carlito recently. I like the repackaging. I can't believe it, but in one episode, I suddenly take Primo and Epico seriously, which I never did, as both Los Matadores and the Shining Stars, which was a terrible gimmick. I like the fact that WWE... I always hate it when WWE don't acknowledge somebody's heritage, and WWE not saying that they're part of the Cologne family, which is a very important family in wrestling, is very strange. And I like the fact that they are now the Colognes, and they are also being introduced as Primo Cologne and Epico Cologne. I mean, they're pushing it hard now that they're part of a big wrestling heritage, and they're pushing them as intimidating heels because they're actually coming in and beating people up, which is great.
Yeah. What else? AJ Styles being pushed back into a title scene is good with him winning the number one contenders to take on the winner of Kevin Owens versus Jericho for the US title. I think that's it. If you're not going to have him in the main event scene, have him in a title scene. He's going to elevate that title regardless.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with him not being on top right now. I think he had a big good time with the main title. I think it's fine for him to take a step back and let other people play for a while. And to be honest, I want to see a big program between him and Owens, not just one or 2 week show program. I'm sorry. For him to win the title, I want this to keep up like Owens versus Zayn. I want it to be a thing because I think they can play off each other very, very well. You saw it in taking your back in AJ's debut in the Royal Rumble 2016. Owens was very much in his face, and it looked like they could have a good program together. And Owens is awesome, and he could do a program with a dog, so
Yeah, there are those stars that they could almost do a program with anyone, and AJ Styles is certainly one of them, and you'd put Kevin Owens there as another as being very gifted, very talented wrestlers that could work. I mean, look, they come from working the smaller venues and where you have to have that sort of ability. You can't rely on name value to get over.
Yeah.
The other thing coming out of SmackDown and the Superstar Shakeup is the fact that Jinder Mahal is now the number one contender for, and they kept on saying it, Randy Orton's title. So I mean, look. They are, and I guess going forward we'll definitely talk about this, but You're now talking about the fact that Bray Wyatt lost the match where he was supposed to have powers is one thing. Then they're setting up this, it's the Bray Wyatt signature Wyatt Asylum challenge match, and he's going to lose that as well. And Orton's not dropping the title, and it's just like...
They don't even know what the match is.
Yeah.
They themselves don't know what the match is. They put up a poll on the website asking what do fans want to see in that match, because they don't really know what to do with that match, because they have this thing now with very short-term, very impulsive kind of booking, and then they book themselves into a corner, and it keeps on happening, and Bray is going to get the short end of the stick once again and lose, obviously.
Yeah. But Jinder Mahal now, being the number one contender, seems very much to be a part of WWE's push into India.
Yeah.
Especially now that they're going to have an Indian stable that he's backed with I believe the name is the Bollywood Boys with a Z.
Yes, the Bollywood Boys now packaged as the Things, I think that's their name.
Yeah, I'm not really. They weren't given a name from what I understand. They weren't.
I think they had. Didn't they say their name at some
I
point?
don't know. I honestly don't know. But yeah, I mean that's what they're gonna be.
Also, it really helps that Jinder Mahal inexplicably became a big sweaty man for Vince to enjoy.
Inexplicably?
Yeah, inexplicably. I don't know how he did that. I don't know how he became so big.
Yeah.
In such short of a time.
Oh, it's no carbs Mahal as he's being labeled.
I guess
he's taking his
Hulk Hogan vitamins.
Yeah, he's taking his Flintstone Hulk Hogan vitamins. That's got to be the answer. But oh god, just the idea of Jinder Mahal versus Randy Orton just seems so unfairly one-sided.
I don't know. They might give Jinder like a screwy win, just to screw with the fan. Give like a bone to the Indian market, and then he's gonna lose it to the next person, I guess.
My issue with that is twofold. One, there was a company once that decided to do a throwaway title shot like that. They were called World Championship Wrestling, where they did that for David Arquette, and they did it for...
Well, you can't really compare Arquette to Jinder. Jinder is an actual wrestler, even though he's not very good or interesting.
I mean, it feels like a throwaway title if he's given...
It is, because they don't... It looks like they didn't book anything for after Wrestlemania, and the evening after Wrestlemania, they just went, oh shit, we need to actually book a show. And then they started doing a lot of random things, like pushing Bray to Raw for no reason, even though he has a match on SmackDown. And the whole Jericho thing that if he wins, he goes to SmackDown. It looks like they just pull it out of thin air. It's a very weird kind of booking. And the whole Bray Wyatt match thing, which they don't really know what to do with the match yet. It looks like they're just keeping. They have like a meeting and somebody just shouts something and they're like, okay, it's in the show, with no thinking about like actual booking. And I mean, it's sad, but I think it will pass in a month or so. We'll see a resurgence.
Storylines, yeah. All right, so that's the two shows.
Nakamura, we didn't.
Right, Nakamura debuted,
SmackDown,
and he's.
And also Ty Dillinger, actually. Both of them came. They didn't do much, but I think they're going to keep an aura of mysticism around Nakamura for a while. I think he's not going to be in the show very much until he wins a big pay-per-view and then they'll push him.
I'm okay with it. I'm okay with the fact that there's not a lot of thing. I think that the WWE, considering how much hours of programming they need to do, they need to spread it up, across more. There's a real fatigue when it comes to having guys like Reigns and those guys that are just constantly out, and Ambrose and Rollins and Owens and Zayn and those. I mean, Zayn not so much, but like having those same guys come out. I mean, we're looking at Raw is 3 hours, 2 hours a week for SmackDown, and they're constantly getting the main event scene when you've got all this other talent there.
Yeah,
it's.
I trust the SmackDown booking team with Shinsuke. I think he'll do his thing. I really hope for him to have a good program with AJ at some point. People want to see that, even though I don't want to see either of them heel, because AJ just came back as face, which is another thing we didn't talk about. AJ is now, I think, officially a face, and that's the right place for him, as opposed to Roman. He's actually now going with the crowd. The crowd wants him to be face, and they cheered him even when he was a heel. So that's a good thing for him to be a face. As for Shinsuke, I think that coming with so much momentum and then just going heel in a sack would be kind of a missed opportunity. But maybe down the line, like a year from now or something, they could start a program with him, with the two of them, I mean. Yeah.
I think that them going into maybe a Wrestlemania type match, with babyface could work.
Yeah.
I mean, we can talk about the tag team division. You've got rejuvenated Shining Stars. You've got the Usos, American Alpha, New Day is going to come into it. You got a lot of potential there for the SmackDown tag divisions as well.
Yeah, I think Trey reinvigorated the scene, and I hope to see great things out of it.
Yeah. AJ's face turn has been really good, so certainly can't complain about that.
It was a very genuine kind of thing. It was cool.
Yeah, no, look, I'm very happy with it. Sort of his response to the match after with Shane was very authentic, and he genuinely said, he genuinely said, "SmackDown is now my home," and it's like, yep, cool. This is.
It was especially authentic because the way AJ's character felt is the same way the fans felt, that we underestimated Shane and but we were surprised, and he gained our respect. And seriously, Shane, I had respect for him as a person and one of the McMahon family, but I now have respect for him as a wrestler, and that's how AJ's character felt, and that made it a very good, very authentic booking.
Yeah, no, I can't disagree with that. I think it's right on the money. He really showed something that I think is impressive for most people.
Yeah.
Moving on. My week this week was a bit of a challenging one, because you had the Superstar shakeup, which meant that a lot of guys that would otherwise not get TV time all of a sudden found themselves not maybe getting TV time, maybe not getting a match, but certainly were mentioned, which is more than what they've got. Who I do want to put out there, and I will put a bit on the burner, I'll put out two names that equally get burnt, and because their TV time was limited to the fact that they were attacked by Braun Strowman. They didn't have a match. I will put it that it was Kalisto that was put in the bin? Or was it Yeah, it was Kalisto that was used as a... Because Braun Strowman hates luchadors. If there's one thing that pisses him off, it's luchadors. He previously used Sin Cara as a dart to aim it at a Christmas tree. And then, for what he did to Kalisto, to throw him into a bin, it was just poetry. Pure poetry.
It was funny. And, of course, that wasn't the greatest thing Braun Strowman did.
Yeah. We didn't even talk about that. But, so it's very much the fact that Kalisto gets his entire role in Raw, even despite the fact that he was mentioned a couple of times in the shake-up, his entire feature on Raw in the last 2 weeks, when everyone has been getting a rub on the screen, was, I got thrown into a bin. So he's the Where's Wally one. The other is the Golden Truth. Is the other recipients of Braun's rampage.
Broke Goldust at some point.
Yeah. Just the fact that they're in such a strong revamped tag division, sorry, they are still the weakest link.
I mean, they're not even the weakest link. They're a non-existent link. They're an unproven link.
But I think...
I'm not sure they're actually there.
Yeah. It's safe to say it's probably for the best that they're not there. Because they're not very talented. I mean, not very talented. They're not as good as some of the other roster members, which is a shame.
Okay, next.
Is your rant.
I wanted to talk about the thing that right now, after Wrestlemania, it isn't as big, but I think it should be talked about nonetheless. And that's the whole thing with authority figures in WWE. Now, pre-WrestleMania, we had 2 shows with very annoying and overbooked and overused authority figures. In Raw, you have obviously Stephanie McMahon, who she's just bad. She makes all of the wrestlers look like little puppy dogs compared to her, because she keeps just ranting and shouting at everybody, and she never gets her comeuppance until WrestleMania, but even then it wasn't that big. And you had Mick Foley, who didn't really do anything. And then on SmackDown, which is, I also have a problem, even though it's 2 faces and 2 people I actually like, the way that almost every big match has something to do with, oh, I like him, or I don't like him. I don't care about the authority figures or who they like or dislike or who they have a problem with or not, unless they are actually booked to fight them. With Shane was nice, but in general, it's always they're always interfering in matches. They're always deciding things based on their own characters' opinions and wants, and I don't like it. As opposed to a good authority figure being William Regal in NXT. William Regal never interferes in matches. He very, very rarely holds vendettas against people or does something just because a person slighted him, and he lets the show just be. And I think that's the way it should be. I think that if you have an authority figure, which you don't have to have an on-screen authority figure at all, but if you have one, they need to be used very sparingly and only if it's necessary, or for short things like introducing people or talking about acquisitions. Other than that, I don't want to see them. I don't want to keep looking watching authority figures fighting other people. It seems completely irrelevant to me, and that's it. That's what I had to say about that.
Yeah, I guess that's not unreasonable. I don't mind so much the authority figures. I don't have as much of a problem as you do. I understand where you're coming from with it, but at the same time, I think they're a generic heel character across all wrestling promotions. So I don't mind so much that you've got Stephanie McMahon that's interfering in people's business. That's what made Austin such a good rebel babyface, was the fact that he was going up against one of the most evil heels of all time in the Vince McMahon character, who was literally putting himself into everything.
Yes, but the problem is Austin beat McMahon up a lot. Here you have Stephanie, who obviously she's not going to get beat by any male wrestler, and also she's not booked to be beaten by any female wrestlers. And you have Shane and Daniel Bryan not being able to be in a match. And Shane, I mean, they're not going to reuse Shane in a wrestler against a wrestler again, I don't think. So they don't have this come up, and they don't. It's booking for only the show. It's not booking for the ring. It's not being booked as a feud or match. It's just a 40 figure wants to flex his muscles, so he makes somebody miserable, and that's it.
I think you're overestimating how often the comeuppance came to Vince. I think that if you look back over the years, there's memorable ones, that's sure, and they will stick out in people's minds. But the difference is when Vince ate it, Vince really ate it, and I think he enjoyed it. And he was more than willing to get into the ring. And yeah, obviously with Bryan as one of the figures, hopefully he can come back. I'd like to see him in the ring again. And I mean, obviously if he decides not to, he needs to decide what's best for his family. And not necessary for the wrestling community. But there is a point to be made in the sense that he could be an authority figure that wrestles. It's their call that he's not. And more than that, I don't mind that it's not an authority figure that is in the ring all the time. I don't think you need that. I think that most wrestling promotions have an authority figure. Yes, William Regal is probably a better sort of not as directly involved in the heat of the controversy as Bryan and thing. And I mean, I think that's a difference of you're booking a lot shorter a show, but at the same time, Regal does get involved in feuds and segments. It's not as often, but and potentially that's because he's also got Triple H there, who's also behind the scenes talent relations, which plays a part in it. But yeah, I get where you're coming from, but I don't necessarily think I agree. Yeah.
I want to say one more thing, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go for it.
It's a thing that, I mean, everybody talked about it, and you might say, oh, it's irrelevant to talk about it because everybody did. But I think it's important to keep it in people's minds, and that's the whole JBL and Mauro Ranallo thing. Now, for everybody who for some reason doesn't know what I'm talking about, Mauro has been missing from SmackDown for a while now, and Dave Meltzer talked about the fact that it's because of constant bullying from the side of JBL. Now, JBL has been very well known as a bully in the locker room, and I think he's still in that very childish mentality of you need to break people in, even though he's not a wrestler. It's a commentator who has history and he is fighting with mental disorders, specifically with bipolar disorder. And I think WWE is really doing a disservice tomorrow in that they're going to probably release him from his dream job, and he did say before it was his dream job. job. They're going to release him and keep JBL. And it's not even about the fact that Morrow is a vastly superior commentator to JBL. It's about the fact that it's obvious here that JBL did a very... He was in the wrong in a very major way, but they're not going to do anything about it because WWE loves their legacy people and they love their Hall of Famers and all of that crap. And I just wanted to say that this whole bullying shit needs to end. I think that WWE, as a company that has a program, they have the PS-Star program, they have to show that they're using that mentality with their workers. I'm not saying fire JBL necessarily, but I think they could have split them up or did something or reprimand or do anything to keep Mauro happy and not distressed as I think he is, as it looks like he is. And I hope Mauro has a great time in another place because I don't think he's coming back to WWE. That's all I want to say.
He's already taking other bookings, so there's no doubt in my mind he's done with WWE. Look, I think this is, and I'm certainly not siding with JBL here, but I also am of the belief that JBL is a symptom, not the main cause.
I agree.
I think that firing or reprimanding JBL doesn't do much. I think the WWE needs to come to terms with the fact that their culture in this area is going to need to change. They can't...
Yeah, that's what I said. They need to change their mentality and to keep it more in line of their PR mentality of being against bullying.
It's also very untimely because of, obviously, Justin Roberts releasing his book where he details it. It's problematic because I think more than the WWE wanting to protect one of their own in the sense that he's a Hall of Famer, I honestly don't think that's necessarily true. They were willing to get rid of other Hall of Famers and other people for maybe not less, but stuff that was just as bad. Hogan's sort of sex tape racist rant was enough to get him to become a persona non grata for quite a while now. I think the JBL is a bit more problematic because for the WWE, because it's not JBL, and this is the thing, it's condoned by higher-ups. The higher-ups don't necessarily say anything. And when you're saying they have the BS-Star program, there's also a lot of evidence to suggest that the WWE is doing that not because they genuinely believe that those things are important, but because they think that that's good PR, that's good marketing.
Yeah, of course.
Which is problematic. But it's a good topic, and I think probably... Would have been good as a rant, if you don't mind me saying.
Yeah, I didn't want to do it as a gimmicky rant. I wanted to really talk from the heart because I like Morrow very well, and I'm aware of what actual depression does to a person, and I think that he really deserves better than what he got.
Yeah. No, look, I there's nothing that I can really disagree with there. I think that Maranello was, and me and you have both spoken about the commentary teams of both Raw and SmackDown at length. Actually, something that I was about to say beforehand was the main trade that happened during the Superstar Shakeup we haven't actually mentioned, and that was, of course, Byron Saxton going over to SmackDown and David Otunga coming over to Raw.
I know who got the worst deal there.
Changes the game completely. I think Raw wins on account of the fact that Otunga's going to be missing for 6 weeks.
Yeah, but they get Booker, who's not that much better. Booker is very annoying.
But he is, though. Simple fact, he is better.
Than Otunga, yes, but
yeah.
Is he better than
Saxton?
Byron? I'm not sure.
Yeah. Though I think that the commentary team on SmackDown actually works really well. I think Saxton fits there better than he fits on Raw, which is weird because he's going to get severely bullied on camera by JBL.
Yeah.
Though, JBL toned that down in the last couple of weeks, making a point to point out it's like, oh, that's a good point to Byron and things like that. And it doesn't ridicule Saxton as much as Cole did. But we'll end the episode here. This has been the second episode of Wrestling Fancast. I've been Dunn.
I've been Michael.
And that's it.